Hey folks, it's Eugene here, and today what I'm going to be doing is a quick example of Vision-3D, using it for forensic autopsies or medical examinations and things like this. I think I did a post a little while ago and the response was really good, and I had some inquiries and some questions, so I thought there was more that I could show here with this particular tutorial video, just keeping it simple. So I want to build a shareable project inside of Vision-3D using a mannequin that I have, just, as an example, as if it was undergoing an autopsy or, somehow it's been documented and we want to share it. So let's get right to it here. I'm in Vision-3D and I want to start a new project. So I got to click on this button up here and I'm going to work in meters, and I'm using a ZEP system. So I'm just going to go ahead and click create. Now I have the ability to now open different types of 3D models. I can bring in point clouds, I can bring in PLY and things, and I can even bring up an image plane and sort of set it up as like a Google Earth flat image on the ground. So I'm going to be working with the point cloud here. I'm going to click on that, and I have one here that's called Larry Autopsy Table. So let's bring that in. And you can see what I've got here. It's just a scan of this mannequin here, and we're going to use this as our subject for today. So I'm going to go ahead and click on add. I'm bringing it in also in meters and ZEP. Click OK. Great. Okay, so first things first, I think one of the cool things you can do here is align the model to a convenient location. So for example, typically when medical examiners or people are taking measurements at autopsies, they often take them with respect to the vertex of the head and, left or right of the midline. And one measurement that you typically don't get is how high off the table they are. So if there's an injury up on the chest, you don't often get where it is, let's say from the height of the table upwards. So you just sort of get vertex down and to the left. Well, doing it this way that I'm going to show you will allow you to get that extra measurement, which is very useful if you're doing shooting reconstructions or you just want to define a point more precisely. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to position the vertex of the head here as the 0, 0, 0. Okay. So what I'm going to do is there's a function here that says, hey, take a point, and it's this guy right here, and make it the 0, 0, 0. So I'm going to click on that and just click on the vertex of the head right about here. And you'll see that it knocked it back so that the vertex of the head is at the 0, 0, 0. So right off the bat, we have this all lovely and centered right there. Now, it may not be perfectly centered, but you know what? It doesn't look too bad. I'm looking at the line going through the feet. Actually, that looks pretty good. It looks like it's through the midline more or less. And I could tweak this left or right. But I don't want the measurements from the table up to be with reference to the vertex. I want it to be with reference to the table. So there's another button here that I can click, and I can bring the base of the table up to the grid, because right now it's a little bit below. So I'm going to click on that. Okay, so now what I have is the vertex of the head, okay, is sort of the XY plane here. It's at the 0, 0, but I have the level of the table right at the base of the grid, okay, just like that. So when I take measurements now, I'll be able to get it from the vertex of the head down, left or right of the midline, and then how high off the table, which is super convenient. So there's, for example, right here, there's a little bullet hole. It may be a little hard to see, but there is one here. And what I'm going to do is just place a point coordinate here. So I'm going to go add point coordinate, and I'm going to add it right on the dot, just like that. And you'll see what I get here is the coordinate location. Okay, so what that means is it's negative 0.46 from here down. It's this way, negative 8 centimeters this way, and it's 0.23 up from the table. So right off the bat, I didn't have to really take any individual measurements. I'm just clicking on points, and because I've zeroed it with reference to the vertex of the head and the table, I can read these off just as they are right here in meters, which is wonderful. So let's try one more. If I want to just click on a point here and maybe there's something on the hand, I'm going to click on that. And there you go. And that gives me, again, negative 1 meter, perfectly, negative 1 meter over by 0.29. And then I've got, about 5 centimeters off the table, which makes sense. So having this is really useful. And we can also take other measurements like full body measurements. And that's with this other tool that's up here. So I'm going to take one here just from the vertex of the head, and I'm just going to click down at the feet right now. And I've got a measurement of 1.73. Now I'm going to want this to actually move to the base of the feet here. So I just have to drag it. If I just take this end, maybe somewhere right in between the feet here, something like that. So I have, the base, it actually could be the heel, it could be whatever. And here now I've got about 1.79 meters from the vertex of the head. That looks pretty good to here. So we have another measurement here. If I wanted to take a limb length or something like that, I can just do the same thing. Click on this, and maybe from the tip of the finger to the elbow here, something like that, I've got 0.46 meters. So you can see taking measurements is really, really simple. There are some different settings you can adjust here. I'm just going to adjust these to make these a little bit smaller, including the text. I want it to be a little bit small here, just so it's easier to manage. And let's do something else. Let's start adding a photograph. So let's say there's some photographs that were taken at the autopsy. I'm going to click on this little photo tab here, or this tag, and click down here on the hand. And there is a reference folder I have, and I've got this hand that's over here. It's got this little mark on it. So let me click on that, and let me double click it. So you'll see it's got this little line here. It could be like a cut mark or something. And I'm going to rotate this image. So you can adjust the image based on how it's placed. So let's say I'm going to leave it like this, and that is now set up. You can move this tag where it's convenient. So I could actually click on it and then like move it up higher. So it kind of gets out of the way if you wanted to do that. And you've got this right here. You can also put in other types of images or any kinds of media. So there's panoramic images, there's video, there's text and things like that. So let's say there's the name of an individual or something. I can just maybe click on the table here, and I'll call this Larry Victim. Okay. And I'll go save, and I can put this up here. I can also tell it to always be on, so the text will always show. I don't need to hover over this tag to make it show. So there's different options here that you can do some different things. Now, let's see, what else can we do? Well, let's bring in another photograph. Maybe there's something on the chest we want to bring in. Click on that. I've got this scan here. This is looks like a CT scan. I want to bring it here, lift it up a bit. So that's in place. There's also other photographs there's a bullet hole right here, for example. And I can bring that one in, just another photograph. You get the idea. Same thing. Click on it, and something comes up here. And let's say is it this one here? It might be this one. I think it might be this one. So I'll just put this one here. But you get the idea. You can bring in images and do that sort of thing. The other thing you can do is you can set viewpoints. So let's say, for example, it's very important that people look at the model this way or something like that. I can set this as a specific viewpoint. And if I click on this, you saw there was a little flash. If I move out of the way, there's this little camera with the frustum. It's a little tag here. And if I double click on this, it flies me right back into that exact position that I was at. So if there's 2 or 3 or 4 things that are of importance, you can take the camera view and lock it away as a viewpoint. I should mention all the stuff that's in the hierarchy here is nameable. You can rename them all into something that's more logical. You can do whatever it is that you want. And most of these objects, when you click on them, they have little properties that you can adjust. So if I uncheck the frustum, for example, I don't get that little like that camera looking thing. So I just have the image tag, and that's it, which is fine. So if I had another image tag on this side, I say, hey, you know what? I want people to look at this from kind of like the top down, something like that. I'll click it again. There's a little flash there, and you see I've got another one here. I'll unhide the frustum, and there you go. You got 2 there. The other one that's kind of helpful, I think, is the documentation object here. So this documentation tag, if I click on that and then click on here, I can add a document. So it could be a PDF, it could be a text file, it could be a Word document, it can be just about anything. And I'm just going to put that in here. But when I double click it, what happens is it brings up a document. And this is just a simple text file, but it could be anything else. And so this is a really, really neat way of presenting data on an autopsy, and then, adding all this media to it and just making a really, really high quality product. Now, we're not done here because I've been adding all this media and that sort of thing, but we want to be able to take this into a shareable format. So we want to export this as something that we can share with other people and they don't have to install anything. But I should mention there's maybe a couple of other things that you can do here before we just do the saving and everything else. One is that you can export a media list. So if you're adding photos and CTs and maybe videos or whatever else, you may want to have a record of everything that's included in this particular project. So if I go File and Export the Media List, I can maybe put this on my desktop for now, and I'll just call this a media list, okay? Like that, great. And I'll do the other one, which is a measurement list. So export the measurement list, and it's the exact same idea. I'm just going to go measurement list and save that one, and that's been exported. Let me go to my desktop and show you what I've got here. So here is the measurement list. If I open that up, you'll see that I've got the X1, Y1, Z1. So I basically got the points and I have the measurements. I've got all the individual coordinates of the points. I've got the overall measurement, and I also have the vertical and the horizontal components of that particular measurement. Okay, so that's all listed here, which is great. And then I've got a media list. When I open that, you'll see that I also have, the name, the tag, and then you see I've got this JPEG, I got this TIFF file, I've got this other image, and I even have that text file that was there. So I've got a bunch of stuff here that's very useful. And if this ever has to be entered as evidence, it's a great way to have these lists available so everybody knows, what is actually the content of these particular files. Now, I haven't saved this project, so this is the editor. I'm going to export the scene. I'm going to save the scene first. We're going to get to exporting in a second. I'm going to save the scene, go to my desktop, and just call this Larry Autopsy, and save that. And it'll wrap up all the information and do what it needs to do. So that's saved. And now I'm going to export the scene. So when I export it, this is what I'm going to be delivering to somebody or giving it to somebody. Now I have a choice here. I can show this hierarchy. You won't see the properties, but you'll see the hierarchy, so you can turn things off and on. And you can also enable measurements. So you'll have the ability to take measurements in the viewer. I'm going to turn these both on for now, but you don't have to. You can shut them off and just keep it really simple. But let's go ahead and go OK. And we're going to put this on the desktop. And now you see it's going to create a zip file here, right? So I'm going to call this Larry demo, something like that. Hit save. It's going to wrap everything up, all the measurements, and it says it's been exported successfully. Okay, so now what we have to do is go to the desktop. So let's do that. And here it is. This is the zip file that you would send somebody. And I need to extract this. So once the person receives it, they unzip the file. When they unzip the file, I'll show you what they get here. Okay, they're going to get a bin file folder, which has all the information and content, and they get a batch file. And all you have to do is double click the batch file. So I'm going to do that now. Just double click it and you see that it's open here. Okay, so it's come in and everything is set up. So I have all my tags. If I double click on a view tag, it'll fly into position and stuff like that. So that's working. Here I can turn things off and on. Okay, so if these measurements and such are bothering me, I can do that. I can get rid of these image tags and some of these other objects, no problem. I can also very quickly hide all the tags up here, so I can hide that and then they shut off. Okay, I can also collapse this window if I don't want to see that and I just want a little bit more real estate. And I can add measurements. So here I've got the point coordinates, so I can just, pick on points and here and maybe here, let's say, something like that. I can also add an additional measurement. So if I just click on the table and take a measurement, I've got that as well. Now, these additional measurements do not get saved, okay? So this viewer here right now is what a person on the receiving end would be using. It could be something that you give the jury or a judge. It's something you could use at trial, but it's locked down, so there's no editing. You can add these measurements, but as soon as I close this, they're going to disappear. They won't permanence. They won't be there forever. Okay, so this is it. This is pretty much how simple it is. And I think it's a great example of one area where, this could be really important. And there's other things that we can do here in terms of the body. Like, so for example, we can hide the actual features and make a more simple model, just a generic model with the photographs. There's a number of different things that we can do here. If, for example, the content of what you're dealing with is a little bit shocking or maybe, maybe sensitive to some people, there's ways to dumb it down and do some different things. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that quick tutorial video and you get the idea of what I'm doing here for forensic autopsies or for medical examiners. A very, very useful tool, Vision-3D. You can check it out on the website. Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.